Welcome to the Harvey Group STE2 Smart Ethernet Thermometer video manual. In this video, we are going to look at this unit. We are going to talk about how you can set it up and what are the typical use cases for this device. As the name suggests, this is a monitoring device. This allows you to connect various sensors and detectors to this device, and you can monitor the state and the value of these devices remotely over the internet, and you can also set up various alarms and alerts based on the value of these devices. The name says that this is a smart Ethernet thermometer, and for this I've also have a thermometer module or a temperature sensor module, but actually the type of sensors that this unit supports is a lot more. So it not only can be used to monitor temperature, but thanks to the wide range of sensors, it can be used to monitor other physical properties as well. And I'm going to talk about the various sensors and the detectors that this unit supports just in a few minutes. As I said, this is the Harvey Group STE2, and actually if you look at the back, we can see that this is the STE2 Release 2 version. So this is a revised hardware version of the STE2, which has some additional hardware capabilities. What we can see here on the desk is what is contained in the box. The box you can see here, so you get the unit itself. There is an external power adapter. So this is a mains power adapter, which is terminated in a barrel jack. And this is 5 volts, 1 amp, so this is used to power the device. We also get a temperature sensor within the box, and there are also additional inputs that are terminated in this screw terminal, to which I've already connected some push buttons for the demonstration. The box also contains a quick start guide that will explain you the basics how you get started with this device. Just to summarize the main features of this product, I just want to go through the icons that you can also see on the box. So as you can see, it supports Wi-Fi and also via Ethernet. So you have the option to connect it to your local network using a regular network cable or using Wi-Fi. In terms of the power, it supports the external power brick that we have just seen, but on the Ethernet connection, it also supports power over Ethernet. It has 2 sensor inputs, and for this demonstration, I'm just going to use this single temperature sensor, which is included in the kit, but it is possible to connect another sensor, and also we have 2 digital inputs as well that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. The device itself will create its own web page where you can monitor and administer the device. But if you prefer to manage the device over a cloud service, there is also a SensDesk portal available where this device can connect to, and you can do the entire management throughout that portal. And of course, that portal will support multiple devices as well. The main use case for this device is that it will send you alerts when certain thresholds are met, for example, in terms of temperature, if it drops below a certain temperature or raises above a certain temperature. And this unit can send you alerts in multiple different ways. First of all, you can configure it to send you an email alert, but if you buy additional devices, then this unit would be able to send you text messages and also give you a phone call. Let me come a little bit closer so we can inspect the device itself. As you can see, it comes in this stylish box, and all the controls are located on one side. So there is nothing on the underside, just some mounting holes and some rubber feet, and the sides have no connection at all. So on the back, we see a power connection. So you can use the supplied power socket to connect to external 5 volt. Or, as I said, if you are using Ethernet connection and your Ethernet supports a power over Ethernet, then you can just use the Ethernet cable, and that would power the device and also provide the internet connection. Besides the Ethernet, as I said, you can also use Wi-Fi, and you have a status LED here. So that will illuminate blue when it is connected to the Wi-Fi. Next, we see 2 ports, one labeled as port 1 and port 2, and these are standard RJ11 ports where you can connect the sensors. So as I said, the kit includes a temperature sensor, and as you can see, the temperature sensor is terminated in an RJ11 phone socket, so you can just quickly plug it like that, and then you are ready to go. And of course, if you have a second device, you will connect it to the second port. And next to the 2 ports, we have 2 additional ports that are marked as DI1 and DI2. These are digital input ports, and that you can use to connect, for example, switches or read sensors. So you would be able to monitor digital levels. For example, if someone opens a door, or if it is connected to a relay, maybe that relay can be connected to mains power. So you can monitor whether the mains power is present or not. For these two connections, the two terminal clips are provided. So I've just connected a very simple push button, and then you can just plug the connector in like that. And this is all you need to get started. So I've already connected the two inputs. Now I'm going to take my temperature sensor and I'm going to connect it to the port 1. And I think I'm going to use the external power supply. So I'm going to plug in the plug for the power supply, and I'm going to plug the power supply into the mains voltage. Now I have applied power to this device, and because I used this device previously, it is already connected to Wi-Fi. So as you can see, I have the blue status LED, which tells me that it has successfully connected to my local Wi-Fi network. And now I would be able to monitor the temperature sensor and also digital inputs just like that. And as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the device itself will create its own web server and website, and this is what I am monitoring at the moment. So it is connected to my local internet using Wi-Fi, and I'm actually displaying the website which is generated by the device itself. You can see that on the main page we have some details on the device, what is the current date and time, what is the name of the device, and the different sensors that are connected. If you remember, I have two inputs, port 1 and port 2. For one, I have the temperature sensor connected, so that is showing the 23.9 degrees at the moment. And if I touch the sensor and we just wait for a moment, we will see this number going up. Yeah, so it's already 24 degrees, and we can see the two inputs as well. So if I just push the button, we can see that one gets closed, now it's open, and now the other one is closed. And because I don't have anything connected to the second port, it is showing an invalid state because nothing is connected. Now let's go through the setup screen so you can understand how this device works. First, I'm going to go into the general setup where you can rename the device, and then you can just add additional information about the device. You can change whether it should display the values, the temperature values in Celsius, Kelvin or Fahrenheit, or what would be the update period of this web page. So how often these values update here on the page. The device name matters because once we set up different alarms, that would be the device name which comes up in the email alerts, in the email subject and in the description. So it makes sense to rename this to something meaningful, which will actually help your users to locate the device where the alarm is coming from. In the next section, you can specify the network details, and this network detail is actually related to the Ethernet connection. We are going to see later on that you can specify it separately for the Ethernet connection and also for the Wi-Fi connection. So you can choose to leave it on a dynamic IP address, or if you want fixed IP address, you can specify the details here. When I log into this website, I'm not asked to authenticate myself with a username and a password, but if you want to do that, you can put a username and a password here. The next tab is the security tab, where you can install certificates on this device. So at the moment, we are accessing this device using non-secure HTTP. If you want to change that to the HTTPS, you have to add your server certificate and the certificate key, or if you don't have one, you can actually generate a self-site certificate on this device as well. The next setup screen is the Wi-Fi. So as I said, I am using the Wi-Fi connection. It just makes it easy so I don't have an additional cable lying around. But I actually use the Ethernet connection for the initial setup because that's what I find the most convenient. You just plug your Ethernet cable into the Ethernet port, and then it will automatically connect to the local network, and then you can start the administration straight away. So I used the Ethernet connection first, and then I came to this screen to configure my Wi-Fi details. So as you can see here, I'm already connected to my Wi-Fi. When setting up the Wi-Fi manually, you can put your SSID and your password here. But on the bottom of the screen, you also have the option to scan for the available Wi-Fi, so you don't actually have to type in your SSID. So you can do that as well. And as I said, we are having a separate network tab here. So this is the network details that are related to the Wi-Fi adapter in this device. So it can actually connect to the network using two network adapters, both the Ethernet and the Wi-Fi, and then you can set them up separately here. So as you can see, This one is also set for the dynamic IP address for me, but if I want to, I can just untick this and then specify a static IP address. The next page is the sensor page, and here we have the two sensors. So these are the two RJ11 connectors on the back, and I have the temperature sensor connected. You don't have to do any configuration here. So as soon as you connect the sensor ID and the sensor type would be automatically detected, and the device will report the current value based on the actual sensor. So as you can see, it detected the ID of the sensor and the type that it's a temperature sensor. So the temperature values or the values are already displayed as temperatures, so 24.1 Celsius. On the other port previously I had a float sensor connected, so this is why you are seeing this data. But in the kit the temperature sensor is included, so this is what I want to use for this demonstration. For each sensor, you can specify a safe range. So I have specified here that this sensor, well, the temperature on this sensor should be within 0 and 25 degrees. So whenever the sensor value goes beyond these values, this is when you are going to get an alert. And we are going to see how that works. You can also specify a hysteresis, and this is a temperature value, well, a temperature value in this case, which will prevent the device sending too many alarms if the temperature hovers around the safe range. So now what is going to happen is when the temperature reaches 25 degrees, then it's going to send an alert, and once the temperature value drops below 24 degrees, that's when the alert would stop. So this is how the hysteresis come into play. Also, for each of the sensors, you can specify an alarm trigger, and we are just going to set up alarm triggers in a couple of minutes, so you will see how that is used. And basically what you say here is, what are the email addresses that I want to send an email to once the temperature goes outside the safe range, or what are the phone numbers where I want to send a text message when the same happens. And you can also specify a trigger. So setting it 0 means that the email or the text message will go out immediately. And if you set it to any number of seconds, then it will wait for that many seconds. And if within that second the alarm is still valid, then only it will send out the emails or the text messages. The digital inputs work very similar to the sensors. So we still have, well, it has two digital inputs. You can name them. That again is important, just like in the sensors, to give them names, because once you start receiving the alarms, that will give you, your support people, the idea, where the alarm is coming from. You can even specify what would be the name of the various states. So we can see that it says open, and if I push it, then it says closed. So if this is some sort of door sensor, then probably open and closed is the correct name of these states, but you can rename them. And just like with the sensors, you can specify whether the alarm should be sent out on status 1 or status 0. So if it's open or closed, and what would be the email targets. So that works exactly the same way as we have seen for the sensors, and the same applies for the triggers as well. So if you have this connected to some sort of buttons, and maybe if there is a debounce on that button, setting it to just a couple of seconds will make sure that you don't get too many alarms, or a false alarms if there is like a signal spike on the cable. Understanding what sensors can be connected to the STE2 is important in order for you to understand how you can use this device and what environments you can use them. So if you visit the STE2 website on the Huawei Group webpage, in the middle of the screen you have this area here where you have an option to click on sensors. As I mentioned previously, in the two ports that are available on the STE2, there are mainly two types of sensors, or two classes of sensors that are supported. First of all, we have the one-wire sensor, and as you can see, they are usually temperature and humidity sensor, or temperature and humidity sensor. And we have also one-wire unit sensor that usually used to different physical properties. Here on the one-wire sensor, there is option to use a classic one-wire temperature and humidity sensor, but it is also possible to use other type of sensor, for example, the PT1000. And as you can see here, there are different variants available from the different sensor. Some of them are for outdoor use, indoor use. Some sensors can be calibrated, and also they come in different cable lengths. In the one-wire unisensor, we have devices that can detect other physical properties. As I mentioned before, there are various options to detect current. There are other temperature-like sensors to detect frost. You can also detect presence of the AC mains voltage, and you can also use analog sensors in various types, for example, 4 to 20 milliamps or 0 to 20 milliamps. So these are the sensors that are connected to port 1 and port 2 of the device. You can also connect the detectors, and at the moment the detectors are the 2 push buttons that I have connected here, but as you can see there are other type of detectors. So instead of just detecting opening and closing of the doors, you can also detect power, vibration, airflow, simple door contacts, for example a read relay. But it can be also motion sensor or smoke sensor, gas or flood sensor. And there is also a simple type of water leak detector that is actually connected to the main, port 1 and port 2. They are not connected to the digital inputs. And on the third class of devices that are compatible with the STE2 are the converters. And out of these converters, I would also mention that there are expanders available. So you can use one of the ports, either port 1 or the port 2, to connect an extender. And to that extender, you can connect additional 4 one-wire devices. So if you need to measure loads of temperatures, for example, on one ST unit, you are not restricted to only 2 temperatures, because with the extender, you can extend one of the ports to actually 4 different ports. And now we already come to the part where we can set up the actual alarms. Now I'm going to talk about 2 separate alarms. I would be able to demonstrate you the email alarms. So if you want to send emails out, you have to specify an email server. So the device itself doesn't have an email server. It relies your own email server to send the email alerts out. And here I'm going to use my Gmail account. So the settings that you are going to see on the screen now are the settings for a Gmail account. So you can see the server ID and the port that Gmail uses. And Gmail only supports a TLS authentication. So you have to take this one. Then you specify the username and the password for your account. You specify the from email address where the alert email needs to be sent out, and you also specify a subject. So that's going to be in the email subject. And that concludes the email setup. Next, I'm also going to talk about the SMS gateway. If you want the STE2 to send you text messages or actually give you a call, then you need an SMS gateway. And the SMS gateway is a separate product from Mojave Group, and it's a box which also sits on your network, and it has your own SIM card inserted to it. So that's going to use that SIM card to send the text messages out or give you the actual phone calls. So if you want to use this device, you have to purchase the SMS gateway, and you will be able to set up the details of that SMS gateway here. And with this, we already reached the alarms page. So here you have the option to create multiple alarms. And as you remember, these are the alarms that are assigned to the sensors or to the digital inputs. So you can have separate alarms set up. For example, you want to alert different people if the temperature reaches a certain value, and you maybe want to alert different people if the inputs are triggered. For the sake of simplicity, I have one single alarm, and this is what I have assigned to the sensors. And as you can see in an alarm, you can do 2 things. You can provide email addresses and you can provide phone numbers. So here you can provide the emails of the person who need to be notified if an alert happens. And in the SMS list, you can provide the phone numbers. So if you just provide the phone numbers, those people will receive an SMS message. But if you also tick the call checkbox here, then they will also receive a call. Obviously, receiving a call is a much quicker way of notifying somebody that something happens. This call is just going to be a simple call. So the phone is going to ring. If they pick up the call, the line is going to be absolutely silent. So it is not about a voice communication. It just gives it just gives the user a very instant reminder that something, or alert that something has happened. Obviously, somebody would much likely to respond to a phone call than to a text message. In order to test the email alerts, I'm going to set my alarms to the temperature sensor, and I put the trigger into 0 seconds. And now I'm going to put the temperature sensor into the cup of hot water that I have in the desk, and then hopefully we will see that the temperature rises above 25 degrees. So there is going to be one thing that you would notice on this page, is that that line turns red. So that actually indicates that this input is now triggering an alarm. So the temperature has already risen to 26.4. I think that's going to be enough, so I'm just going to remove the sensor, and then hopefully we will see that the alarm email has been sent out. And I've already received the alert email. You can see that it contains everything I need to know about the device and the sensor. So you can see that's the subject that we have defined on the SMTP page. This is the name of the device, and then the name of the sensor and the actual value which triggered the alarm. And we can see the details here as well. This email is going to contain everything about the sensor. So it's not only going to show me the temperature which triggered the alarm, but it also shows me all the other sensors as well. So for example, the 2 inputs. And I have also received my second email, which looks exactly the same as the one below, but now it says alarm end. And as you can see, the alarm end email was received when the temperature has gone below or at 24 degrees. So this is the 1 degree hysteresis that I was talking about. So now the alarm has ended. I got a notification when it started and also when it ended. I also want to mention that the built-in website is not the only way to monitor this device. There is a separate Windows application available from Huawei Group, which is called the PDMS, and that allows you to connect to this device and then monitor its temperature, well, monitor any of these values and also display them in a chart. This is an ideal addition if this device is, for example, used in lab equipment, because then it can be just left connected to the sensors and whatever physical property that it should be measuring, and then you just run the PDMS software in the laptop and you would be able to read the sensor values remotely. And of course, here in the chart you can set which device you want to monitor. This of course supports multiple sensors, what time scale you want the report to be generated. I mean, I just started logging a couple of minutes ago when I started this video presentation, so I just only have data for the last, probably half an hour, but you can refresh the chart and then you can also save the chart as a picture or export the data into Excel. Besides the built-in website and the PDMS, it is also possible to monitor this device using SNMP. SNMP is a network protocol which is used in the IT environment regularly. This is used to monitor network equipment, routers, monitor traffic, health of servers and different network devices. And this device also able to report all of its values using SNMP. So if you look at the OID tables, you would be able to see all the different values that the unit actually supports and exports. For example, you can see the actual values here. So the sensor value currently is 21.7 degrees. Under the portal tab, you can set up the connection between your STE2 and the SensDesk portal, or actually SensDesk portals. So first you need to enable the portal connection. You have to provide the portal address, and then you have to provide your team and your team password, which you are going to find in your SensDesk portal under My Account. And once you have the connection up and running, you can also specify how frequently the device is going to report the sensor values to the SensDesk portal. And just give you a quick demonstration of the SensDesk portal. So I have under devices, I have one device connected. So this is my STE2, and that's the name of the device, which I haven't changed on the configuration page. And you can see that I have the temperature and the float sensor, and because the float sensor is not connected, this is why it is giving me the warning message, but we can see the temperature here as well. And we can also load the temperature data that you can see here. Before moving in, this device was outside, so if you look at this, it was measuring the outside temperature. So the temperature has dropped below 0 degrees overnight today, and you can see that that value or that range of the graph is shown in red because that's outside the safe range. And you can also zoom in if you are interested in a particular period. You can use the zoom feature to zoom in and pan through the actual values. And of course, you can print the chart, export it into various formats. But besides looking at the device, the SensDesk portal can also be used to send various actions. So just like we have seen the email alerts, we can use the SensDesk portal to give us email alerts, reports, or actual text messages or phone calls as well. So here, let me just show you a quick email alert setup. So I have an alert set up if there is a freezing temperature, if the temperature drops below 0, and here I can also specify what is the sensor that I want to monitor on, that it should be like an email alert, what is the notice. So this is where I specify the ranges, similar to what we have seen on the safe range. The big difference in the SensDesk portal that you can specify multiple ranges. So not only you have an upper and a lower value, but you can have multiple of these and then trigger separate alerts on these different ranges. In the notification target, similarly to the email alerts, you can set up the email addresses that needs to be sent out, and you can also specify a template. So that would be a message template with a subject and a body that would actually get sent. So you can customize the email alerts that are getting sent out to the specific scenario that you want to cover. And of course, the other big advantage of the SensDesk portal, as opposed to configuring the alerts on the device itself, if the device loses power or loses internet connection, obviously it won't be able to send you any alerts. But if you have it connected to the SensDesk portal would be able to send you alerts that the device has lost connection and it's no longer reporting to the portal. And as I mentioned before, in the portal, you can specify multiple ranges. They are called the notices. So I have a notice here, which is called the freezing temperature. So that has a safe zone of 0 to 25 degrees, but I could have defined another notice to the same sensor, so it can give me multiple alerts. Maybe I could have defined the freezing temperature to 0 to 200. Well, most probably it's going to never reach 200 degrees, and define a separate notice from, let's say, -50 to 25 degrees. And I can assign a separate template and a separate list of email addresses when the temperature drops below 0 degrees or raises above 30 degrees. And you can also specify the email templates, just as I mentioned before. So here you specify what would be the email subject and the email body, and the targets, which are the email recipients. And once you have all these set up, you can go into actions and link all these configuration together. So in my freezing temperature action, I'm linking what sensor that action should execute on or should be monitoring, and then what is the range it should be looking for, and then when we are outside that range, what is the email template that needs to be sent out, and who should be the recipients of those emails. And besides the notices and the actions, you also have the option to create reports. And this report can be configured to execute, let's say, daily or weekly, and that will send you a PDF report of that sensor, which can be a single sensor or it can be multiple sensors. And I just want to show you one of these reports. So I have a daily report set up for the temperature sensor. And if I open the most recent report, which as you can see is on the 11th of February, you can see the measured values. And as you can see here, it was pretty much below 0 throughout the entire night to night, and it has gone all the way down to -7 by the morning. And here on the second page, you can also see the events. So you can see what was the peak temperature, the minimum and a maximum in this range. And of course, what was my monitored safe range for this device, which is 0 to 25 degrees. And since the temperature was below 0, it is actually giving me a warning state here. And with this, we reached to the last screen of the built-in web server. And here you can see some stats on the device as well. If you want to back up this configuration, you can just easily download this file and restore that configuration easily. All the settings and the actual values that are supplied with the device are available in XML format. So if you wish to integrate it into a third-party application, or you have your own application where you want to get the values, you can get these values into XML format. But if you look at the actual value now, we can see that it's 22.2 degrees. So all the information that you see on the website is available here. And for the SNMP integration, you also have the MIP table and the OIP table here, or the keys. Down at the bottom of the page, you can see some product details, different versions information, and you can also check if new version is available for this device. So the current version is 1.3.10 or the latest version, and I am actually on 1.3.7, so I could initiate a network upgrade where this device is going to download the latest version and it would automatically apply it to the device. If you are interested in purchasing this device, you will find the distributors and the partners on the Hover Group website. You can filter on your country and you can see the companies that are distributing Hover Group products.